Hi YouTube. We're back for some more action today on the ASH26 Flat Mod Part 5. So this is where we left off, guys. Just got things temped in here. We're gonna turn this back on, get our memory jogged. Okay, got everything set up here. Check this out. Watch this. This is so cool. Oh, full length flaps. Not that we're going to necessarily keep that. They never seem to work as good as I want them to, but look at this. And then crow, baby. That is so cool, guys. And of course, all the while, we never lose our aileron. We never lose our ailerons. So, anyway, now what we got to do is just make sure we're lined up where we actually want to be. Make sure we're not going to hit anything inside the wing. Make sure we're far enough back on the leading edge here. I don't see a rib there. Looks like we're just next to it. So I want to be careful. We don't want to take out the rib. So I can see where the rib is here. So I can kind of, in fact, I might tape that real quick to be on the safe side. Details, guys. The devil is in the details on this junk. I really like doing this stuff, but boy, there's 4 trillion steps on everything. I'm going to make a reasonable assumption that this is square to the wing body and not the plane transition here at the wing root, okay? Because the wing goes like this. They're not going to stack everything this way. They might stack this one this way and then work them square because you're going to get the most strength that way. That's called an assumption, folks. I could be wrong. So, to avoid being wrong, I can move in slightly without compromising my functionality here. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do. Just going to move it in a little bit. And to be honest with you, that's fine. Let's just double check the throw. Okay, so far so good. So that being said, I could also just cut this front portion first, or maybe cut the side portion first. Now let's just study this again. Let's study. Are we at a flat spot? Are we going to be too narrow here? Do we need to move it back? We're going to have this. This is where the main wing spar goes in, so obviously we don't want to get too close to that. Let's just do another tape joint. These are going to be our boundaries. Those things that teenagers hate, but young children need. Okay, here we go. Pulling this tight. I know that this goes laterally through the wing, so we know that this is our limit, our boundary. Okay, well, except that my other tape joint, yeah, I kind of put that on the outside of the, I should probably put it like on top of the wood. Yeah. Okay, so that would be like our absolute limit. Okay? Plus or minus a couple millimeters. And there's nobody saying it doesn't have to be exactly there. I'm gonna get a light so we can look in there. I mean, I can see in there, but you guys probably can't see in there. Oh yeah. There's a structural rib right here, which is very strong and very critical to the strength of the wing. And there is not a structural rib between these two. That was something I didn't think about. I'm glad I thought about it now. Okay, so that means that my next boundary is actually here. So let's just go ahead and draw that line on there. Jeez, are we going to run out of room? We're hollow all the way to the nose, okay? You guys see that? So that means this piece is the maximum extent, okay? Now remember, one of our objectives was to try to keep the weight in front of the CG, if possible. We can cut those tabs off, but I'm just a little bit nervous about being able to drop this all the way down in there. I really don't care if I cut those off. It's not going to hurt anything, because this is going to attach to the top plate. Okay, folks? And when I say the top plate, I mean this. It's going to actually be double-sided tape to the bottom and then glued with CA to hold it in place. I think that's where it's going to be, guys. That is where it's going to be. I normally don't make a lot of tracing or marks on the planes for this sort of thing, but in this case, I'm going to do it. Okay, I'm just going to mark a couple of reference points. I don't even care if the tape is there, it doesn't matter, because the hole is actually going to be slightly bigger than this mark anyway. Okay. That looked like that was on purpose, but it absolutely wasn't. Alright, so if I were to make a square, guys, imagine a square that's large enough to receive this whole package, okay? And if I were to do that, what would that look like? It needs to be wide enough to receive this width at minimum, and then this width, which is, so it looks like we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 25 millimeters would be the minimum. Okay, so this is actually a little bit wider, which ironically enough it ends up being pretty much perfect size for what we're trying to do. So I'm just going to cut a little bit of this tape off. Okay. So I'm going to use this as my second measurement. Going to make this as perfectly square as possible. Then I'll check for squareness in just a quick second. Okay. That looks square enough for what I'm doing. Now this is gonna be a pretty big box still if we do that. Whoops. Well, whatever. We know it works, so. Now what I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to get a gauge for how large that might need to be for a cover, okay? I think worst case scenario that would be an appropriate size. Okay, so now it's time to cut. This is the scary part. Just like it was scary when we cut in the flaps, it's going to be scary to do this too. Hypothetically, you can always cut a little bit more out. Hypothetically, I say. And I mean it. You may not be able to cut out more. Sometimes it's really hard to cut a little extra. You end up collapsing the wood. I'm going to try my very best to cut this only big enough and not any more than is needed. That cut's super easy because I'm going with the grain of the wood. And I suspect that this cut is also going to be. Now the good thing about being up against structural members is I'll have somewhere to receive good screw points. Okay, so now I'm taking the knife backward. Now forward. Now backward. Ooh, buddy, you can hear it ripping. Okay. Now forward to the stop point. Now forward to the stop point. Feels like we got a little bit of bonding there, so maybe I cut into the structural rib just a little teeny bit. Now we're close enough to the end, I might be able to pop this out like this. Yep. Guys, look at that. Look at that. Came out almost perfect. That's beautiful. So I'm just going to cut that to make it pretty and clean. Now the rationale behind the tape for that was twofold. One, to get a size measurement, and two, to protect the finish. Okay, so that's forward on what would be, well, it's this wing, the first one. I usually try not to label left and right. I get mixed up because the wings are upside down and backward and off the plane. Oh boy, this is a scary moment. This is where I find out if I screwed up big time or if I did everything right and we're okay. Okay, so remember the tabs. We knew that the tabs were probably going to be an issue. And I think we're okay. Yeah, that's going to be perfectly fine there, guys. Perfectly fine. So really, I don't think I need these tabs. So I think we're just going to go ahead and chop them off. And yes, I do keep these type of things because I'm weird. The micrometers might come in handy in a minute again. Okay, so go ahead and pop this connector out. Drop the wire. I had hoped to have the wires enter at the same point, but sometimes we don't get what we want. Unless you're like me and you just work harder until you get it. Guys, look at that. Gorgeous. Gorgeous fit. It's in there all the way. Look at that. Now, what would be kind of cool is, contrary to my original plan, if I were to mount that within the wing, hold on, let me see if I can get this so that I can plug it back in here. I'm going to pull the plane forward a little bit. Okay, so this is our throw on the flaps. Oh, you see? That thing broke off. See what I'm saying though, guys, is that I'm going to get the maximum throw, but I could drop this down into the bottom of the wing, which is actually the top of the wing, as opposed to mounting it onto the cover like I originally intended to, which would still be perfectly fine. I can actually drop it down in there and potentially save a whole lot of exposure from that control arm. One thing that concerns me just a wee bit, and that is, in the unlikely event that somehow my confusing setup gets screwed up, I'm only using 150 minus to 75 minus. That means that it should throw this way, which would move it toward the front of the plane. I'm just thinking about ripping up the wing, because this thing is fairly strong. It could probably damage that stuff. I'll need to be keeping that in mind for my considerations. Where are you when I need you, CA? Right there you are. Time for a little CA action here. I have to more formally test this. I normally want this right at the hinge point, and that does have me a little bit off put because it's just so far from the edge. This thing is, because that means that's going to make less impact on the wing movement. Let's slide this on. I know I have my mechanical adjustment here, but I'm just wondering if I could get this a little bit further up. Like that. You see, guys? I'm going to have to lose a little bit of... Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can get away with pulling that over to the one next notch over. Okay? That might do it as well. Now let's see if I'll clear everything. Yeah, I think we'll be okay. I'll just have to open that up a little bit. Let's do that real quick. Back to the neutral position, kind of where I originally designed it to be. Meaning I got to open up my mechanical adjustment just a little bit, which is not a big deal. It's a lot harder to do this once they're mounted, so try your best not to have any fine-tune adjustments needed, but that goes without saying. If you're doing this without any fine-tune adjustments expected, then you're probably going to be very disappointed with yourself. The other thing is, notice where the screw hole is to get this adapter off. It's going to be accessible from that direction. So if I tape this down, I'm going to have a heck of a time getting that out without poking a hole to get a screwdriver in at a steep angle. Well, I think we'll live with it for now. Let's glue this on and see how it looks. So I'm just sighting along the green line there. Alright, just got that. And just a little bit there. The cool thing about that is that when we're ready to actually mount that with screws, there's a very, very good possibility that I can just take and scrape off that little bit of glue without even damaging the monocoat, because the nature of the monocoat is such that you can get away with that. Alright, cool. So that's held in there, so now all I gotta do is hold this servo into position, looking for nice clean alignment. Why do I feel bound up? Why do I feel bound up all of a sudden? What am I doing different? What am I doing that's causing that? I don't want to be bound up. I think it's just further, it's pulling it further. Guys, I like it. I like it a lot. I like it so much I'm really tempted to just hold it in there right now. But now, let's talk. What are we holding it up in there? What are we holding it in there with? I could also block this to mate back up with the surface of the top. That is an interesting idea, me. Okay, so this is what we're going to use for the cover. Now, as you know, the cover needs to be about the same size of the green, maybe slightly wider. So I've got this nice little reference here. Now, I could keep this little bend on there for prettiness, but I don't think I want to go that far into the wing. I think I want to cut it back there anyway. So why don't we just do that real quick. Get rid of this stuff. It's useful stuff for later. Now, if a guy wanted to, I just had a brilliant plan, guys. If a guy wanted to, he could almost make a plug out of this. On the other wing, he could just not cut one side and then he could break it open. Nah, that's way too much work. I'm not doing that crap. But you could, if you wanted to, in YouTube land. You could totally do that. Because that sounds like a lot of work. Who am I kidding? This whole thing is a lot of work. Okay, so guys, if you're married and you if you go into your wife's office and you try to use her paper cutter to cut these things, she'll get mad at you. I just wanted to pass that warning out. Or if you use her hole punch, you accidentally break it in half, just buy another one before she finds out. That may or may not have happened to me this week. And I only made one mistake with the way I played that, and that is that I told her we needed a new paper punch. It would have been so much smarter to just get a new one myself. And so that's one reason I like this media here, guys. Because look, I just use scissors. Not like some really difficult thing to do. Although it does look kind of crappy on that side. I got a bad cut on it. Trying to really go for squareness here. Okay. And here I am trying my best to undo what I've already done that works. Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So now, I want these edges rounded. Ironically enough, after that last story I just told you, my wife also has this tool that's designed to cut outside corners like this, and it works really nice until such a time as you're cutting something that I want to cut. Now, I didn't break that one yet, but someday guys, and I'll even let you watch, it's going to get broke. And it's not going to be by her cutting craft paper. It's going to be by me cutting a titanium wing strut or something ridiculous like that. Okay, so all I did there was just round the corners. Now I'm going to take and do it this way. Now the reason I'm paying attention to this is because this is going to be a finished goods thing. You're going to see it. And I don't want it to look like crap, preferably. Okay, now we have a little texture here, and we have a little smooth here, okay? The smooth, while it matches the finish nicely, the texture might actually match a little better. I think we're going to go texture side up. Okay, now the other thing is we need to get some screw holes in here. Let's talk about where the screw holes need to be. Obviously, we want to hit the main structural rib here, and then it would be nice if we could get into this. But to be perfectly truthful with you, we have enough material here that we'll be okay without worrying too much about it. So, I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of mimic what they've done here. We'll get the drill. We've already got a little midget drill bit in there. Sorry for you little people out there, I don't mean to be offensive. I mean a small bit. See that? There it is. Just like that. So we're just going to poke these open. Okay, cool. Now, that hole is probably actually not big enough for what I need, because the screws that I'm going to be using may actually be just a wee bit bigger. So let me find those, I'll come right back to you. Alright guys, so I found some screws. These are actually like the screws that come with the servos. I'm not going to be using them. And then I got my drill bit. You got to open up just a little bit beyond, but just remember the head of these screws is quite small, so we don't want to go too big because then you'll compromise the performance of the screw. It's like that one I got really close to the edge, so I'm going to bring it in just a hair. Okay. So basically, what we'll do is we'll get these where they need to be, and typically it would be counterintuitive to want to strip screws, but you do want to strip the screws on the cover portion. You don't want the threads to bite on the cover, you want the threads to bite on what's beyond the cover. Okay, now the other thing is make sure that what you pick for a screw has enough threads, because these will actually be holding the servo in place, guys. It's not just going to be holding the cover itself in place, because even though that thing is sitting on the bottom, I'm going to use this to mount that to it. Son of a gun. You drop a screw like that, grab a rare earth magnet, sweep it around until it hits something. And it works really nice if you're working on rugs and stuff like I am. I do that about 100 times a day. That's a slight exaggeration. Okay, perfect so far. Okay, so this has been a pretty easy step. Now there's one kind of challenging thing left on this project, on this part of it, and that's going to be locating the hole where the sweep is going to actually go through, where the control arm is going to shoot through. And that's a little bit trickier, because at this point we have to decide exactly where we want to locate everything. So, are we satisfied with the position? I don't know. Are we? I think we are. See, and I got flexibility. I can bring that into slightly different positions. I think centered would be nice, but I just got to make sure we're not going to have any binding issues, because it felt like we were almost binding a little bit earlier. So let's say we'll put it like that. Perfect. Okay, so then the other thing is, once we have this fixed, then that's going to need to be fixed. One thought I have is to maybe put just a touch of glue to hold that in position so there's no compromise. The other thing is, not 100% sure if I'm going to use tape or glue, but these things are so smooth that really I'm going to rough up the surface just a little bit with this X-Acto knife. Because I have a sneaky suspicion that at the end of the day on this, it's going to be held on with 3M double-sided tape. I just don't know if it's just going to be a bunch of pieces of it, or if there's going to be some balsa wood in there. So I'm just getting in there and getting a lot of texture on it. Usually I do 3 and then 4 different directions. So that thing has got a lot of texture now. Okay? So this is the time where you could hypothetically sit and think about, of course, things always slip off when you're working on pillows. This is where you can think about, where is the force going to be? The force is going to be on the tip of this, okay? Which is going to be the tightest closure point, okay? Meaning that the cover is going to hold tightest there. Okay. The other thing is, I made this lengthwise for a reason, but I can also go this way. It doesn't matter. There's no right way or wrong way. In fact, I kind of like it this way better, because it's going to mimic closely the feel and look of that. So I say, let's go ahead and figure out if we're going to use balsa wood or if we want to use something else. Balsa wood is not always going to be the best choice for this type of thing. Let me search through my junk and I'll come right back. Okay, so while I had you pause, I pulled the screws out and then I put a piece of tape on here, which is going to be to help us locate how big to make the hole. But then I studied this angle and I thought, well, surely some balsa would be fine, but I started looking at these shims. These are synthetic shims, and the width is such that I should be able to get 2 of them. And I looked at the angle and it looks about right to go in here and make up. This is exaggerated, of course. But guys, we're out of time for this part 5. Thanks a lot for watching. More to come. Stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe.